Hi, I'm your host, Sandja Berkman, and this is New Global Mind, where we explore leadership for systems transformation. The topic today is parenting and leadership in the age of AI. With me, I have a super inspiring speaker who I met at the Global Peter Drucker Forum a couple of weeks ago in Vienna, Léa Persman. For nearly 20 years, she has investigated and built innovative solutions to unlock the wonders of human potential in education, in work, and in leadership. What if the real frontier of AI isn't technology, but how we enable humans to rise? For the past 2 decades, Léa Persman has worked in the intersection of human development, leadership, and emerging technologies, exploring how we can build systems that elevate human intelligence in the age of AI. Léa, it is such a pleasure for me to have you here on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to see you again, even from afar.
Likewise, likewise. Our topic for today, we decided on the title, Parenting and Leadership in the Age of AI. It seems like a natural segue is, what is the connection point between parenting, leadership, and AI?
I love it. I've spent the past 2 decades working with executives, leading schools, leading HR and VP talent positions in a diverse range of sectors in technology, luxury, education, everything. And so I've worked with talent and I've worked a lot with leadership, what it requires, how do you instill it, how do you develop it, how do you accompany it, enact it, all that. And over the past 4 years, I became a mom twice. And that's always a very humbling lesson, I would say.
Absolutely.
Because very often you are born again with your children. I think that's a reality that every parent shares. And it's also a new kind of vision over the world and yourself. And you have to learn how to lead yourself, because soon you realize that you're being mirrored back. So over the past 4 years, obviously the things, leadership, my job in terms of leadership development, education, and parenting, me becoming a parent and learning these skills or having to use them to lead at home. And at the same time, trying to enact them also with my children. And we can talk later, expand on leadership and self-management, which I think is going to be high. It was always important, but I think right now, especially with our use of technology, is going to become more and more important. That was a whole mishmash that happened for me, and that blended my work life, my corporate life around leadership, and my personal life around parenting. And then AI, I have spent the past 10 years with technology and trying to figure out a way to leverage it to be a smarter infrastructure for talent everywhere, to advance careers, to advance learning opportunities, to advance collaboration, to advance the way we look at people in terms of hiring them, teaming them, investing in them, developing them, etc., and giving leaders superpowers, not only as leaders of strategy or of business, of performance, but also as people leaders, because I think that's different, hard, comes with a lot of practice, a lot of expertise, and also a lot of passion, or at least feeling, for sure. It's very human to lead other humans. Over the past few decades, I think we forgot that. And so how it all collided for me is that I don't think there is anything more than parenting that will make you feel human or bring you back to your human self. I'm saying this as a woman, but I don't think it's only for women. Obviously, we live it through our bodies and we carry the child, but I don't think it's only for us women. I think it's just an experience becoming a parent that will trigger you in all the human way possible, of feelings, of sleep, of all the feelings, all the experiences, all the sense, I would say. And so over the past few years, when I went rogue and started working as an independent executive advisor and starting to build my own AI native career platform and trying out entrepreneurship, I had to work with leaders day in and day out. I was also a mom, and I was using AI as a partner in crime, as well as trying to, understand and manage the technological lion in front of me. And that all collided. And over the summer, because it's not an easy period, we make it sound like it's, this new gold rush and everybody's excited about this whole AI revolution and the possibility of big revelations of a global scale intelligence and collaboration of, sharing not only data, but just, I don't know, a new kind of state for humanity. Everybody keeps talking about a new state for technology and the whole singularity thing and technology beating the human. But there is also this other dream of something possible for humanity. And at the same time, when I was there in companies trying to evangelize, for AI, an AI solution respectful of the humans in the organization, as well as being a mom day in and day out, or night in and night out, should I say, and then seeing the whole AI industry taking shape, something really hit me. And that's the fact that not only are we anthropomorphizing AI, but we also have, for actually a few decades now, been machinizing humans. So it's like it became cooler to be a machine. Now it's cooler to be an AI than to be a person, more often than not. And when I was building my company and I was going to events, and investment gatherings and so on, a lot of people and a lot of CEOs were telling me, oh my God, so you're creating AI agents? When are you replacing my staff? I was like, no, that's not at all what I'm doing. Actually, I think that there is a spark of unique intelligence in every single person. And I think that we only created system to equalize and normalize. And AI is giving us the unique possibility to see the uniqueness in all of us and have that intelligence and that spark come out and be combined in a different kind of ways with other people in ways that maybe we didn't see before. So I do see this whole possibility. And so that's how I project it onto my children and me as a leader, me as an exec, me as a founder, and me as a mom, as a mother. But that's really not what was happening and what got people excited. And so this summer, there was a weird moment in the post on LinkedIn where a head of research at a very prominent AI company in the Silicon Valley was making a comment about we are going to raise generations of AIs and making comparison with Einstein and this and that and how the AI on the servers were going to be okay or not. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Who are you talking about? Do you have children? And so this whole confusion of genres is very convenient because by making you believe that the computer is a person, you open to it, you share with it, and then you get the data. And there's, all the gist that we are aware of. And then by also making us believe that people can be machines, that's also problematic. And I think that now we kind of like are at this moment when it's kind of like a step too far in both directions. And that we are therefore not leveraging humans as humans to the best that we could get from ourselves individually and together. And similarly with machines, because by trying to make them copy human is very bizarre. It's like, we don't like to be humans, but at the same time, we want machines to be us. It's twisted. And so whenever it comes to actually having children and being in that position, I felt very bizarre because I was like, okay, maybe AI is just this crazy Frankenstein experiment where some men, actually, we have to say it, finally found a way to have babies who they can name. So you name the model, you feed it data, or you raise it responsibly. It was all parenting vocabulary. And when you look at all the posts online about AI now, so much parenting vocabulary. And obviously, these babies, these generations of AI, don't cry at night, don't poop, and best of all, you don't even need a woman anymore in the loop. It's not a human in the loop. It's not a woman in the loop. It's amazing. I guess, I don't know if it was the summer, the non-nighters, but it kind of hit me. And so since then, I added a thread to my life, and that's exploring what parenting in the age of AI means and could be, and at least putting this conversation forward. Because I think that a lot of us are obviously, scared and have all these questions about, screens in front of our kids and things and that. But I think it's a little bit more than that. It's like, in what world are our children going to work, live, love, feed themselves, dress themselves, clean themselves, cure themselves? Like all of these questions. It's very funny. It's like when you talk to people and when they wear their hats as like being an exec and a leader, either in corporations or in politics, they will have a big discourses or strategies and visions and this and that. And then as soon as you ask them to be the leader in their home and to put the parent hat on, something really switches more often than not, like really big time. And so that's also something that I'm I don't have any kind of answers. This is really the process I've been on, and that's how I've been combining leadership, AI, and parenting. And thank you for letting me share that story, because that's really how it happened, or how I gave birth to
That intersection.
this intersection and this interesting, for me at least, framing of things, of what if we should think right now as parents and leaders in the home and in our, village, as we called it, because the village disappeared. And so I looked at it, and I looked at parenting more closely. And in fact, it turns out that biologically, parenting is the original operating system that is the fabric of human intelligence. Why do I say that? Because parenting biologically lies upon a 3-step process: synchrony, balance, management, and then meaning. What I mean by synchrony is that being human means that we are going to react and copy, mirror whatever the other human in front of us is doing. And it's not only in terms of behavior, it's in terms of voice, breathing, heartbeat even. And that's very, very true between a child and a parent. That's from birth. We're born into this world, and the first thing that you will learn to do, you will do it innately, is the synchrony process. So that's how you learn. The basic of learning and also intelligence is the synchrony thing. The second is it's regulation. How does mom regulate the fact of being very angry and very tired, but not crying, not yelling, putting the smile on? And so I could and I should do that. Let me test it again. And so that's the whole regulation. And so to live in society and to be able to be intelligent and to think and free ourselves from only emotions and reactions and so on, we need that regulation. And then the third step is meaning. It's like, oh, okay, I am feeling all of that. I know how to manage it and read it. And then I am going to choose a purpose, and I'm going to go and achieve things. And so that is what parenting biologically is, or lies upon, the process that it lies upon. And so the most amazing thing is that this is not only one way. It's not only knowledge and intelligence comes from the parent, goes into the child. Our brain is wired with something called mirror neurons. And why that? It's because it is always both ways. It's always a loop. So right now, when you are talking to GPT and you are teaching it wonderful things, it is also talking back to you, and therefore in a relationship with you. And so you might be learning something as well. And that's why conversation or relationships, first with humans and now with machines, are wiring and are the fabric of human intelligence. And it's that two-way process. So we teach the child, but also the child teaches us. And so that became, in terms of leadership, that is absolutely fantastic, because we always start, exemplary leadership, and you need to model, and you need to push it forward, and you need to, like, leadership is not management. We've heard that talk a lot. And so I find it fascinating that when you go back to biology, and now when you put AI, and the big thing about AI is obviously, yes, the data, but with the Gen AI and the revolution that we're in, is that the machine can talk to you and you can talk to it. And I think the really big thing, and I'm very much following everything that's happening with voice AI, because it's giving machines a voice and letting us share and express things way more. And I was, at this conference, I was just making a funny comment, but which is not so funny after all, is I might talk more to ChatGPT daily than to my family. And so whenever you put that into perspective of the fabric of human intelligence, whose intelligence is growing right now? Whose leadership are we under? Mm-hmm. And then for me came the question of what intelligence do we want? What leadership do we want? And also just what life do we want? And so the questions right now are just a lot about infrastructure, and thinking in terms of a parent also puts you in, it's for my kids. Let's imagine that we could reshape. That's also the opportunity that AI is, by mirroring, the good thing though about AI mirroring us and being I don't know if the AI is a parent or if AI is our child, sometimes it's a bit blur. And a lot of people actually are using it. Yeah. A lot of people are using AI as a co-parent. That's a lot of people. There's this mom in Zurich who became very famous in the media saying, oh, I love to turn off my brain and to delegate, my parenting to ChatGPT.
What kind of part of the parenting is she allowing ChatGPT to?
So they are there are lots of things. They are, as we said, right? Their parenting is both ways. We tend to see it one way. And so there is all the, let's say, the ups of parenting. So planning for birthdays, remembering dates, thinking about, I don't know, doctor's appointments, imagining activities for your kids and what to do, when they're bored, and if you want to travel, help you plan for trips. And so there are all the logistics of parenting where AI can help. So that's one thing. And a
Makes
lot of
sense.
people use it for that. The only issue is that there is no full privacy and there is no full memory, and there hasn't been specific training. Of course, these models, all the different Gen AI models are trained on the internet, and being a parent is something so unique. Nobody can really tell you how to parent. You can choose, listen
Yeah.
to some people, but nobody should tell you how
No,
to
and
parent.
I think what you're really talking about here is attunement, because parenting is becoming attuned to yourself and your child and that space between. And I think that's also, for me at least, I'm a mother as well. My daughter is a little bit older than your kids, I think. And it has been the most rewarding and challenging journey, absolutely, because as you were saying, it mirrors you. So where you're not in touch, you'll be mirrored in some way. And you'll have to actually, if you use it as a developmental journey, your kids are really the most amazing way that you can transform and grow as a human being if you practice attunement. And of course, as you're saying, AI doesn't have that.
Yeah. And I think that in that conversation, so we might be having a conversation with AI on parenting, on other topics. And so aside from logistics, then there is the whole attunement, the whole consciousness, the whole emotion part, baggage. And so a lot of people are, and I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything. I can't have an opinion. I think that everybody needs to find a relationship with themselves and now with AI. But like any kind of relationship you could have with an object, we have a relationship to the world or house or clothes. We have relationships. So that's obviously true with machines. The one thing now is like it is actually talking back to you. And so that makes it a little bit more tricky. But if you are just therefore turning your brain off, like the way this mom was saying, that's when it becomes maybe problematic. I mean, so many kids are saying, yes, when my parents, my mom, my dad is on their phone, it's like I'm not important. And we've all fed that way of we are talking to someone and they look at their phone and the phone is more important than us right now in that moment, and how it makes us feel. Imagine feeling like this as a child. It means that right now all the generations growing up of humans think they're less important than technology. They're less important than machines. Can you believe that? Like that's
Terrible.
insane.
Yeah.
If we extrapolate, it's a very simple fact. If you, in the day to day, my kid looks at me sometimes when I'm answering an email or I'm in between, and I can see the look, I'm less important than your phone. My daughter, who's almost 3, so 2 years old, has found a very interesting technique. She will say, Mom, you need to look at me. And she insists, and she will continue and continue to nudge me. I need to look at her.
Hmm.
If I'm speaking to her, or whenever she's speaking to me, she first demands that I look at her. I'm like,
Wow. So
you're going to go,
wise.
her. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's
I find
that's a
it amazing.
wise young soul.
I don't know. Maybe I taught you that. Hopefully I taught you something like that.
Yeah, maybe you were mirroring, she was mirroring you in some way,
That was,
But
yeah,
that's good.
that was so interesting for me. And that's when I realized, and I was hearing this comment, and I think there is a fantastic woman who I admire a lot, Esther Wojcicki, who is an expert in parenting and has been, and she's from the Silicon Valley, and she's been very embedded in the whole development of technology. And she raised 3 amazing daughters, and their eldest is the one who rented her garage and where Google was started. So she definitely was, at the center of it, or this whole revolution happening. And so Esther Wojcicki wrote and talked a lot everywhere about parenting. And she wrote a fantastic book, and she was saying this of like, children think they're less important than technology. And I think that right now, when you think about leadership or management, and we've been asking employees to sign in, use this tool, and so on and so forth. But then people kept looking at the data. And even when you have, performance reviews or goal setting, we don't have conversations anymore with people. We don't have the time. We don't have enough people to have these conversations. We don't talk to each other anymore. We let people talk to the machine, and then we get a response from the machine. So we talk to the machine, and we think that truth comes from the machine, and the narrative comes from the machine. These are all questions and observations, and lately that kind of set me on a path of wanting to explore more everything around parenting in the age of AI, and the parallel that I'm having, and a few conversations that I've had lately with leaders, and putting them. And I know, this old saying of like, the company isn't your family. There was this whole thing of family-owned businesses and more, like the patriarch. And I've worked at several family businesses like Chanel or the Rothschilds foundations and so on. So I have experienced that culture, these cultures, and it's something that always suited me well because it was more embodied. And it was people and leaders having conversation with other humans way more than systems, I would say. That's something I guess I always appreciated more without really realizing why. Now I'm even more appreciative, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not when you have, IPO'd and you have, very big and large corporations. Obviously, your job isn't your family. And one thought, though, is that it's not because it's not your family that we need to lose touch with any kind of human relationship and humanity within work. And I think that COVID, didn't help, or the fact that we are all remote didn't help. But I don't think it's the COVID of being remote or using technology and so on and so forth. It's the fact that having and nurturing and believing in people and liking yourself as a human, being okay with you being human. There's this whole thing about longevity and like, we all
Yeah.
need to be immortals. It's like, oh my God,
Striving for perfection and striving to be becoming machines,
exactly, again. And I just like, oh my God. And I was also having this common conversation with other people, like, not having parties anymore, not drinking, not enjoying life and feeling and being outside. Also, sorry, I'm French. I am French. Well, I'm Basque. So French and Spanish and independent. But what happens to having fun? It's like, what happens with living, with enjoying a conversation without feeling guilty, a meal, a nap, being a human? I think that it's very interesting for me, this society that we have become, because is this what we want? Do I want that for my children? And do I want to prepare them for that? Or do I have to prepare them for that because the world is going to be that, whether I like it or not? So it kind of makes me want to say, hey, everybody who is a parent, I'm not talking to the CEO. I'm not talking to the cashier. I'm not talking to the VP sales or, CTO. I'm not talking to you as a professional. I'm not even talking to you as a citizen from wherever country. I'm just talking to you as a parent, aren't
as a
you?
human being.
Really. And that's parent, just because, like I said at the beginning, it was like, I think that's the one thing that brings us the closest to being, feeling, and enjoying.
Well, what you're talking about, as I'm understanding it, is really that massive separation, like the individual that feels separate, and how that's part of that machine way that life is being conducted and business is being conducted, and how that's creating isolation and also at decline in well-being and thriving on the human level. And if we want to talk about leadership and business, we can also talk about productivity and how that's related to when we become separate and we become these perfectionistic, longevity seeking machine like, rather than human beings with sentience and consciousness. And how AI, what I'm hearing you, if I'm hearing you right here, is that AI, if it's being used the way that it's looking like it's being used right now, it's creating more separation between people. And we have lost touch with ourselves and each other, just a normal dialogue, community, being able to speak to another human being instead of speaking through a system and then the manager or team does something with that data. How about sitting down and learning how to converse with each other? And being connected, that interdependence and that connectedness, the humanness, really.
I think
And in my own work, there's some different wording on that, and it's an exploration, but it's really becoming in alignment with the fabric of life rather than becoming um, a perfectionistic, productive machine.
Also, I mean, this productivity word, I think, is the word that is being the most used. But for what? Like,
Yeah, what are we
produce,
producing?
produce what, and for what? You know, and
Absolutely.
it's just. And whenever I'm having this conversation around the culture of an organization or the mission, you know, of a company and the vision or the employer brand, I'm just like, don't get me wrong, I understand the money bit and I have nothing against it, obviously. And I would say, an idealist humanist for the longest time. And I still am somewhere, but you have to be pragmatic. We live in the society we live in. That includes an economy and some societal norms that might differ, but in fact, just not that much. And I think that we keep forgetting that there are some norms and some just by default in the human operating system, no matter where you are on the planet, where you were born, your culture, where you work, no matter what, we all are humans. And I think that we forgot that, right? But this whole productivity, like, we just gotta be very clear up until what? And also, there are many, many problems right now to be solved, but not problems that we created, just actual challenges, issues, everything. And that are worth a lot. And so I think the worth and the value conversation is going to come back now. Because with the value conversation comes the values conversation. There are many, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of talks about, you know, the care economy. And yet again, we are making it an economy because somehow, you know, we need the productivity to be there too.
It's talking to the capitalist system that we're so ingrained in. It's like if we can just position a certain topic into the capitalist system, like you were saying, I'm an idealist like you as well, and also a pragmatist, and understanding the wheels and mechanisms of business and capitalism. I also think is really the only way that we can actually make any type of progress. I mean, if you want to now some of your areas of interest, it depends, of course, how large you want the influence and who you want to drive along on your initiative. If it depends on the level of ambition and also being able to draw capital into a certain project. A question mark. You were saying you were at a conference recently, an AI conference, and there are all these great ideas and people with passion and engagement and so forth, but not so much capital.
I think that the whole where is the money going conversation is the conversation we need to have. And it goes right back to what we value. And I mean, for me, over the summer, when I was very busy being a mom over the holidays, because sometimes you have to do that too, and realizing that parenting is a job, feels like a job, definitely sometimes, but it's also just a calling and the fact of being human. And I was like, it's crazy how all the billions right now are going to raising AI up versus raising humanity up. And does raising humanity up necessarily goes through AI or not? And it's very bizarre to me of what gets money or not. Beauty, plastic surgery, the longevity things and so on, that gets a lot of investment. Nutrition, like just, okay. Elderly care, childhood, education, even healthcare just is not, we should just compare the billions being invested right now on IT infrastructure versus human infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, like when you look at that just as you yourself a human, like we are going to be sick someday. We are going to be old someday. We are or not parents, or we are going to care, hopefully, I really wish it, for other beings, human, non-humans on this planet. And so I don't know about a care economy. And also sorry, I'm going to make an insert here, but the other day I was seeing this bit done with an Indian economist, very smart remarks. And yet he was really talking about, women, mothers, being at home and taking care of the children. And in fact, that if they're not doing that and instilling values and just raising happy, balanced little people, that then will grow up into great leaders and workers and contributors, then we're going to have a problem because we don't have the moms are working and then they're not at home raising the great humans anymore. And I was like, why are we only again talking about moms? And I'm not just saying that because I'm a woman and in terms of feminine discourse, I'm like, some men and women are born to do that, to raise other people, to, be caretakers and do all the things for society. Some other men and women, I'm going to say it a bit provocatively, but like in a provoking way, but don't care. And I guess that I would love to have that data actually on, natural callings. I would love to get that data of if as a child, when we are born, do we have the actual, sometimes in nature does it well. And we would have the right proportion of doctors, of, I don't know, bakers, butchers, financial people. Would we have the right proportions to take care of our society? Would we follow our callings? Before, like your parents had like that function in the village and the economy, and that's what they were bringing to the community and the society. Today, obviously, that's not how we think. We don't lead our careers like this. We don't lead organizations like this and so on. And then we're wondering about performance and productivity. If you have 80% of your workforce that is not executing on their calling, I'm not sure about productivity. That's just very basic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't work with my 2-year-olds. I mean, I've been a teacher with, in kindergarten. I've worked with teenagers. I was the dean of a university. I've done exec education. I was a manager, a leader. I had people. It's the same at any kind of age. Humans, if you want it, you will do it. You could excel because you aligned. There is this alignment. When you don't feel it, you don't want it, it's something, there is no alignment, forget about your productivity.
It's going to be.
I actually can't wait to see if AI gets a calling. I actually would love to see that about the mirroring.
I would, if I could have my wish, it would be that AI would help humanity evolve in consciousness. And really, as I see it, an evolved human being is balanced within themselves and able to show up in a compassionate way, no matter the circumstance. And that also means, of course, justice is very much part of that. So it means saying no to injustice and having that right moral compass part of just the way you show up and how you make decisions. I would love for AI to help us become more human in that way and be better humans.
Yesterday at this event I was looking at different booths from different companies, and there was this AI for travel business and travel retail. A salesperson saw me looking, and they started engage the conversation. So we started having the conversation about what they were offering to their clients. And he was like, well, we enable better customer experience and the relationship with the clients. I'm like, oh, great. How? And it's like, oh, well, the chat bot via WhatsApp, like if the client has a question about something, then we can answer it. I was like, okay. But do you also, engage the conversation, try to learn more about the customer and create a relationship that could be positive, not just like I'm taking your data, I'm going to exploit it and just sell you shit. Just like, hey, like, who are you? Do I have something for you that would be of use, of interest, and so on? Otherwise, let me,
And I hope you make you or your life better.
exactly, just as a normal conversation. And he was like,
Mm.
oh, no, we don't do
No,
that. And you are the salesperson? That's bizarre. Okay,
but
fine.
that's the old paradigm. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so interesting.
Or
And
the
so,
current paradigm, I would say.
yeah, exactly. And so it was like, oh, interesting. So we are talking about this whole AI revolution and big frontiers. Turns out what AI companies are selling right now is a chatbot via WhatsApp. And at the same time, this very nice and capable person was telling me when, clients are not ready for anything else, oh my God, they don't really want to buy from us. They don't understand. They're not organized for it. They don't get it. Like we can't really sell anything else. So we don't build anything else. And that's when I was like, it's not AI is vile and terrible. It's amazing. It's amazing technology. And we're really lucky to have it. What you were just talking about, justice and moral compass. It's like, why is it that people with not always the nicest intentions are, coming up with the technology first. Well, maybe because they're more motivated. Like, why is humanity always more motivated at bad, good? Like, not everywhere, not everyone, but it's like, I mean, they're always, unions of villains more than there are unions of superheroes. Superheroes, it's only one lone wolf. Then at some point, maybe they will unite because danger is really big. And so that's what I'm kind of saying. I'm like, okay, good people. It's not even bad people, good people. Everybody sees the good,
Yeah.
have their own interests and so on. We can't be so. I mean, thank
It's
God I
not
grew
good or
up.
bad. Yeah, not black and white.
Thank God we grew up. I mean, I grew up a little bit, but at the same time, but that conversation with that person was interesting, and so I was like, oh, interesting. And so how do you see the AI usage? It's like, oh, do you have children? It's like, yes. It's like, oh, so as a parent, and since you were a salesperson and you've been there for 4 or 5 years at this company, AI company, what do you think about AI and your kids? It's like, are you crazy? Never. I'm not putting them. Well, did you see all these leaders at Meta and Google and all of that? They say that it's really bad and they don't put it in front of their children. I was like, you would not put it in front of your children, and yet you want to put it in front of the whole world.
Mhm.
That for me, cognitively, is the most bizarre thing.
Completely.
It's just,
And also that they don't understand, well, putting it out in front of the whole world to extract wealth in various ways, it does come back to themselves because it becomes the fabric of life and we're all interconnected. So it's not that you can send something out and then protect yourself and your children. I mean, this is
but
being unleashed in society at large scales, so it's also finding out how do we need to interact with it. And I like your analogy as well from I believe your TED Talk, Berlin TED Talk. It's not, I think, published yet, but it probably will be, right?
yeah,
But
very
when you
soon.
talk about how are we going to parent AI?
And that's what I was about to say, is that it is the most amazing technology. Like, imagine what we could build with it. And I'm having this issue, building an AI native career platform. People have been telling me, oh, you're a visionary, oh, wow, like our bosses are like, we are not ready, or, at very big talent businesses, like global businesses, like, oh, wow, that's very interesting. Oh, yes, we could do that. I was like, yes, if we're going to do something with AI, why would you want to repeat and automate outdated processes? We have the capacity to scale faster and to make all our infrastructure for whatever. I'm talking about talent because it's my world, but it's education, it's sales, it's healthcare. It's like all the infrastructures that our society is running on, we could make them more intelligent, more collaborative. And AI is based on the internet. What is the internet? Is the output of all of our brains. It's collective intelligence. And so we have access to global intelligence. That's what, when you talk to GPT, it's not that you're talking to the machine. You're not talking to the machine. You're talking to humanity. That's what you would, I think that's also that reframing, would be useful. And so,
Yes.
and if we can talk all of us together, not online and so on and so forth, but have this conversation, then what do we want to do with it? And as an entrepreneur and as a parent, I find it bizarre that we are not asking these questions of, it's not the technology that is bad or mean or terrifying. And like, I think that the whole thing of like, I think a lot of people want us to not talk to each other anymore. Some people want us to be scared of this technology so we don't try and use it and understand it and so on. I think everybody has and should have an opinion about what to do and about what to build, and that it could transcend all other infrastructures that have been framing humanity for the longest time. Economics, religion, just, we need frames. We need support. We need infrastructure as frames. Yeah, frame. We need a setup or limits. We need framing. That's how brains work as well. We need the limits and we need the infrastructure and the path and and in many ways, in ways that you didn't explore or you're not a natural in and so on, you're glad that other people thought of that infrastructure, that way, that thing you can navigate that was built for you. And so now is the time where we could rewire everything. And I think that's very scary for some. people, especially the people who are very attached to older framings and infrastructures.
And especially, I went straight to AGI. So I know it's not AI, but AGI, the development of a different type of potential consciousness. I'm not saying it's going to be conscious because it is a machine, so it's not sentient. But if it can be deployed and developed in a certain way that it can actually help us as human beings become better, to understand how to interact with each other in a better way, to be better communicators, to learn to heal our own projections and so forth. Everything that stands in the way of healthy ways of relating in a human to human manner. That for me is an interesting, very interesting conversation. And I know that some people are working on that, but that's a different conversation.
So that's interesting because AGI. I mean, we are in times of redefining a lot of things, like what we actually mean by this word. Yeah, and at first, AI was augmented intelligence. Like in labs and in everywhere, it was not artificial intelligence. Yet again, it's like, oh no, humans, ugh, let's get rid of them, these stupid people. And so we went from augmented to artificial. And so same with, imagine for 1 second, if AGI stands for not artificial general intelligence, but augmented general intelligence. Like, why are we keeping the human out of AGI? I don't get it.
Say some more about that. That's interesting.
Why is AGI only machine? Why? I don't get it. Because they can prove that they can have their baby, genius baby alone. Fantastic. Generations of Einstein machines. Woo! For what? Again, for what? What if, because that's a personal conviction, but I think that we know close to nothing about human intelligence. So look at the systems we have to learn, to evaluate each other, really, name, we always want, as a talent professional and an education professional, I've been asked like, yeah, even on my resume, yeah, but give me numbers, not qualitative data. We are really bad at appreciating and understanding and quantifying in any kind of way. Now, neurosciences and cognitive sciences are booming a bit because of this whole like, oh, maybe you can use that for AI. It's just so funny, It's like, yes, let's make progress in neuroscience, in cognitive science, so we can make artificial intelligence better. What?
How about the humans?
It generally baffles me, really. I don't get it.
Well, it is interesting, that interest, and which you really started out this conversation talking about, that deep interest and fascination with AI, AGI, and so forth, but it's like leaving out the human, and where's the human, and why is the human not valued?
And so what do I tell my kids? You're worthless? A machine is worth more than you? And so, sorry, the systems that I have to raise you responsibly, to feed you data, to name you, are all outdated. I prefer investing all my money on my machines. Because it's laughable, but that is what is happening.
Yes. And also segueing into leadership.
It's that we made it so expensive, and we made it a business to go and get a degree from a prestigious university. Like, we made it expensive, we made it exclusive to raise humans. And then we are saying we have so many problems with society and people behaving like this and like that and like that. And then terrorism and all of this. And like education, relationships, communication. These are the answers. We know the answers. We know certain things about the human brain and how in the social fabric and nature, in the human nature. And yet we don't have the infrastructures making that feasible or possible even anymore. And so when we are saying that we need to revamp everything, we do. But right now, the systems that are being tested is, hey, let me give you an AI tutor. We know right now, some research shows that 70% of the positive life outcomes, of the outcomes in somebody's career or life, they don't come from the school that you send your kid to. They come from your parenting. 70% of life and career outcomes.
Yeah, that's significant.
So yeah, it is ingrained. And I think that how we are thinking of schools and universities and work is about to be redefined. And very timely, AI is a fantastic technology to be that infrastructure for that kind of world. Because now that AI can talk, It can actually understand human relationships, or at least better than a regular machine when you just have, labels and this and that. Labels don't
Yeah, data.
advance, or they can't support a relationship. AI can support that because of language, natural language processing. Is a human revolution, not only a technological one.
And how is
So it's,
tell
I don't know,
how is language making AI able to understand human relationships?
because there is a way that you can talk to the machine. You can explain, you can define a word, you can use an image, you give way more data input.
I heard
Language, I mean, there is the language, and then, but that's also the difference between, I mean, let's, again, I go back to parenting, not only as, again, a kid and a parent, but as like the way for humans to interact and learn from each other.
you speak of the quiet collapse of the human village. Can you put some words to that?
We feeling more comfortable, or at least more at ease, because technology is right there all the time. ChatGPT is just right there for me whenever I am free and available, whenever I have a question, and like my husband or my kids or my friends or anybody. And so we are nurturing these relationships, and at the same time nurturing perhaps less, and we live in more, global societies, family ties, friendships, the way even at work, like it's just the nature of work that we have said it's not family. The very nature of our relationships, I think, changed. I think also since COVID, it's a bit different. But for example, if your child is sick or something happens, or you have a question, it's really, really hard. Before we said it takes a village. Because you were here in a small or smaller village unit, doing something, contributing to society, making a living, but also taking care of one another, like your neighbor. Sometimes, at least in Paris, sometimes you say hello to your neighbors and they really wonder, like, is this person crazy? Why is she talking to me? No,
A human is
that's
talking to me. Oh my God.
smiled at me.
I'm
That's
only speaking with my chat
yeah.
GPT.
It's something very funny happened to me this
Yes.
afternoon in the metro. Even I was just waiting for the train, and this lady started shouting at me, saying, "Why in front of me? Why is it always in front of me?" I was listening to a podcast. I was just standing there, but apparently I was standing in front of her, between her and the train. And I think that, I don't know if if you notice, but I think that the human rapport, at least in big cities, when I have traveled, I think it was in New York, in Germany, in France, in the UK, everywhere is kind of the same, is we are all very irritated. We are all very fed up with other humans, or taking it out on each other. It's like, get out. Leave my happy bubble. Give me my Netflix and let me leave the dream. No friction, no. And then that's the thing is, so for the village it's two things. Is one, as we were saying, friction makes learning, makes intelligence, because it makes marks and the shared experience and the experience, and therefore the feelings, and therefore the coding, brain coding, intelligence is that comes from friction and from these relationships. And so that's one. And then at the same time, just support and love and feeling and being human. And I think we lost a lot of that. And we were talking before about the partying, the team meetings. It's like right now we have to be very productive in meetings and stand up. And oh yeah, meetings, they last for forever and so on. But did we wonder that meeting lasts forever because people just like to be together? It's not like they like to not do work or be useless. Many of them are also that. Yet, what if we acknowledge our need to build rapport, to be a team, to be together, to ask, hey, are you okay? What's up? How was your weekend? Like, really, actually listen to the answer and care about that. And then at the same time, in 5 minutes, well, yeah, what about, this client? And then do you think that we can solve blah, blah, blah? Yeah, for sure. 1 second. Yeah, maybe you spend 10 minutes actually caring and talking with the other person, and then your thing was solved in 2. But if you didn't have the 10 minutes just talking and building a relationship in your village, maybe solving the actual problem would have had taken 3 meetings, like 1 hour each.
What is being in those is that trust, that connection that's being built in the human interactions. Trust.
Yes, I think we lack so much trust. I think it's not even care or love. The other day I was having this conversation with a professor I really love. I think that's the right word. Who worked with me 10 years ago on a conference at MIT. on the future of people. And he's a professor of sociology at Warwick University, Steve Fuller, an amazing thinker. And he was asking me, oh, well, if you were talking about your human DNA, like, or the intellectual DNA, like what is intelligence? And I said, well, it's love.
Human intelligence is love.
Yeah, because love can be lots of things. It's not just this is love. This is a type of love. It's not just loving your family or loving your partner or your lover or someone. It's just attachment, appreciation. Since we were talking a lot about human intelligence and how it's evolving, I do think that technology is having an impact on human evolution. Always these things that you see on t-shirt of like the man standing up and then doing like this again over a computer. I think there is some truth to that. I find it, obviously we have more data and a bit more data on what's happening with our brains and cognitive sciences and, all of that. And we're diagnosing, especially children, a lot more lately. And so ADHD, ADD, autism, being dyslexic, like all of, let's say, being neuroatypical, all of us are neuroatypical. So when you talk about, the DNA behind human intelligence, so behind, in fact, intelligence, it is feeling and then it's processing. But the baseline is feeling before the processing. And I'm curious we are diagnosing many more kids with, high potential, but also a lot of relationship and knowledge and cognition twists. Some of them that might be, hindering to healthy relationship with society, with colleagues, just leading, let's say, a normal life in the frames that we have again. And I'm wondering, is it that we are diagnosing more because we are more aware of these peculiarities, or was it always like this? Or are we also evolving as a species? And in what way? Obviously, we don't have the timeline isn't playing in our favor here, but I'm actually going to look into that of like, how can we, and there are studies being led by now on, the impact of AI and digital tools on cognition, especially in infants and so on and so forth. But I think it's interesting to look at the impact on the actual brain and how we are wired literally, but also the impact on the social fabric and the relationships. Because it's not often linked like this. We tend to see the human as the brain and then the intelligence as the individual, and not so much the relationship tissue, the links, the connections. We tend to see that being different when in fact they are wiring it. They are enabling it to come out, this intelligence, and to be fueled and to grow. So I would love to see the impact of AI on our brains, obviously, but also on our relationships. And so when I was talking about the village and before, I think it's also that. And being neuroatypical myself and it being genetic, and so more likely than not already dealing with neuroatypical kids, it's definitely not easy and also an uncharted territory, very lonely. And so again, the infrastructures and the systems, but whenever you start talking about it, you realize that it's not just you at all. It's thousands, hundreds of thousands, it's millions of parents and of humans and of families that are experiencing that. And now also, in companies now, at least in France, some top tech 40 companies just signed this neurocognition diversity charter. So I think the whole human brain and human intelligence is coming back, but I'm curious to see, we need to not oppose it to technology. We need to find a way to have this healthy relationship. At least that's what I'm eager to explore. And build, because maybe we can, if we're closing on that, I've been passionate and involved with foresight for the past 12-ish years. Did a lot of it at MIT, and then after that with companies, with individuals. And it's always struck me how we behave as if the future already exists, and trying to identify small signals from it and like weak signals, and it's going to be like this, let's prepare. But it's like, that's not the way it is. The future does not exist. And at some point I had something in my email signature about, tomorrow does not exist yet. And people got mad at me Of course it exists. Of course it's going to happen. And like, these are two different things. Tomorrow happening is very different than tomorrow existing yet. And I think that this approach to future thinking and projecting, and so few people feeling capable and authorizing themselves to think what do they want and how they can shape tomorrow and what they want tomorrow to be, and then making it so. That's also has to do with leadership and parenting. It's foresight should be taught to everybody at any age, and not only individually but collectively, and not just as an act of deciphering, what is coming up next, but what do we want to happen next?
Where are we putting our energy and focus? What are we creating today?
I think the economy should be the economics of building tomorrow, not most of tomorrow. It's just a twist in how you see things, but it changes a lot.
It does change everything. And as the whole exploration of this podcast and this dialogue really is, how do we create leadership for systems transformation? The world is in an interesting place in many ways, collapsing systems. And here we are talking more about the human fabric. Really, how do we bring that human fabric into connection? How do we parent in a different way? And how are we engaging with technology and leadership that becomes more human, is what you started out really talking into. And how is that a way we can create the changes needed?
Yeah, because right now we are very much consuming the future the way we're consuming everything.
And instead we want to
And I
create.
think that if we want to talk, if we want to talk about productivity, let's talk about that productivity.
Absolutely. Now it's interesting. All of a sudden it's like, yes, there's agency.
See, agency, the word agency, now it's a word for AI. What? Oh my God. It's like this never ending thing. My kids to have agency too.
We want our kids to have agency and not just be passive consumers that fit into the current system and feed that unconsciously.
But that's right, the system we are. And I was having this conversation with other parents about Montessori school pedagogy or not. And the other parents were like, oh, I don't want my kids to go to Montessori because then they will have to face the real world and they will not get it. They're not in charge and they don't have agency and they're not driving, and it's not up for them to decide. Like the Montessori pedagogy is full of, infrastructure and limits and frames and rules and so on. But it is so self-driving and so on. And so whenever now I have a lot of conversation with, again, leaders and top execs and CEOs and so on, and CHROs, and what I share is we really need to get thinking about self-management and self-leadership, and not only, and yes, of course, about management and about leadership. But right now, it's not enough. A leader cannot be, how can a leader compete with ChatGPT? Between someone who is, something that is there all the time for you, nice to you, understands you, whatever. Will you follow ChatGPT or your leader or your CEO or your boss? Who do you follow?
Yeah.
CEOs are in competition with GPT. Now GPT will say, come work for me.
Well, maybe we'll get, since many CEOs like the competition aspect, maybe that's how we get them engaged in this driving different type of agency.
Yeah. So much to build and to explore, for sure.
So much to explore.
Thank you for this, for picking my brain, getting the conversations.
Absolutely.
I think two things is, of course, thinking as a parent, even if you're not typically a parent, you are a parent to someone in this world. And two, thinking as a kid, as a child. I think we need more of that, a lot more of that.
The curiosity and hunger for learning and growing and being open.
Yeah, and not giving any fucks. Usually, more than not, being quite nice and group oriented, not just self-aware or self-oriented. I think the sense of community, it's weird. It's like this weird thing of like, we need more self-management, better self-management and leadership, while we also need a deeper sense of belonging and of community and of the village. So thinking as a parent and thinking as a child. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Wonderful conclusion to our talk. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
It was good to be a kid with you.
You have listened to the video podcast, New Global Mind, Leadership for Systems Transformation. Thanks for joining us. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and all your podcast channels. Remember to subscribe, share with your friends so we can get the word out there. And this Tracker conversations are really that, conversations to explore, transmissions to explore what is emerging, how do we create systems change, and a world that is just and flourishing for everyone through leadership and business primarily, as is the focus on this podcast. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.